Hi, everyone. And again, welcome to 21 Days of Green. Today is day 11, and the mantra today is abundance. So I'll be right back and we'll get started.
Okay, so I want to, first of all, establish that I have been to many organic farms. I've actually was raised in a farming community, or at least in the summers, because my grandfather was a farmer and he lived in a farming community in southwestern New Mexico. So I was raised around farms, some conventional and some less conventional, but not exactly organic. And then I studied organic farming by going to visit the Duchy Home Farm in England and also some of the organic farms in Ireland. And, you know, the wonderful thing about that is that the farmers can talk about their processes, but you can also see it in action. So I wanted to just share with you a picture that was taken of me with David Wilson, who is the home farm manager at the Duchy Home Farm in England in Tetbury. And again, I spent the day with him, and a couple weeks prior to that, I had spent a couple of days with organic farmers in Ireland, both tasting their produce and also seeing the results of their work. Now, in an organic farm, they have crop rotation, they have animal management, and all of the things that are actually healthy for the environment. So when we talk about abundance, in the mindset aspect of it, I oftentimes use a peach tree because a lot of times when we're beginning to understand this idea of abundance, we might think that if I win, someone loses. But if you think of abundance in nature, that's not the way it goes. So, you know, if you think of a tree, it doesn't produce enough fruit for one person or one family. It produces more than enough fruit for everybody, right? And that's where we want to start tapping into is more of Mother Nature's definition of abundance, less of I win, you lose, right? There are win-win scenarios in nature where we see great abundance. So it ties in. So I want you mantra today, abundance, abundance, abundance. Some of the things that we can do for abundance to reinforce this as a mindset for ourselves is to do a charitable act. The reason from that, and you have to quell the, you know, the temptation to think of it like, well, I don't have enough time or I don't have enough money to give, so I'm not going to do this. When you feel like you have more than enough time and more than enough money to donate something to somebody, that is a feeling of abundance. So you can, if you haven't gotten there naturally yet, you can start to develop that more natural definition of abundance just by being more charitable on a regular basis. Like once a week, donate an hour and here's what charity is. Yes, you know, if you want a tax deduction, you got to go with a 501c3 or something that qualifies. But it can also be delivering food to a neighbor who needs help in, you know, in the middle of a pandemic or whatever. It could be a family member. It could be spending quality time that you go off the clock and everything, and just a family member, whether it's a child or an infant or an elder. It can also be, again, donating time to that school and setting up a school garden, donating time to your community, setting up a community garden, running for office, a leadership position of some kind. So just understand that abundance, you're going to start reinforcing it by being charitable. And the last real important key to it all is that you don't expect anything in return. Like the peach tree, when it gives you all these great peaches, it doesn't ask you for money or it doesn't ask you for anything. It's just there. That's what charity and the charity that can establish Mother Nature's definition of abundance or a more natural abundance. So you have to take your mind off of, I'm going to do something here so that I receive this in return, and more just say, I'm going to give an hour here because I think that this will benefit the community or that person, or, whatever it is, that school, whatever it is going to be. And if you do that once a week or even once a month, you will find that your mind has expanded and your heart has expanded. And you might even find that you experienced something very rich, like really maybe even priceless. And it all came about because you gave without expecting anything in return. So that's where we're going to start. But I do want to also give you a little bit more of how we can tie this in to our 21 days of green, particularly since we're talking about abundance and nature. What we have discovered, I mean, we've known this for a while, is that the best carbon sequestration is actually trees, so you see one in the background, and soil. So what we need to do, and this is something that is happening. In fact, let me show you the website that's leading the charge on this. Is called 4 per 1,000. And you can learn more about it at 4p1000.org. So what they're saying is that if we can just put 4 parts per 1,000 more of carbon into the soil, then we can offset our carbon emissions. Now, we still need to reduce them. We don't want to just be a polluting world and then try to jam them into the soil, because we've seen that too much is going into our oceans and it's killing our oceans. So we do need to also become net zero in our lives, and we can lead very rich lives, very happy and successful lives without emitting all this CO2. So, but the other side of it is the soil. So I want you to think about abundance in Mother Nature's definition. I would like for you to do a charitable giving act. And I also want you to think about how you might participate by being a carbon steward, whether it's to be planting more trees or a tree initiative in your community, or starting that community garden or school garden, or composting, or even choosing organic food. And the reason I say that is that conventional food that does monoculture, so one crop, it is heavily reliant upon pesticides and petrochemicals. So half of that gallon of oil or that barrel of oil goes to make petrochemicals, pesticides, and even polyester clothing. So we want to start, really thinking about how we can get rid of that in our lives too, because it emits CO2. In fact, the top 20, I might have already told you this statistic. If I have, it bears repeating. Over 1/3 of the CO2 emissions that are in our atmosphere since the postmodern era are just from 20 companies, and they're all fossil fuels. Most of them are oil and gas. There's a few coal in there. So it's really important for us to reduce the reliance on petrochemicals, pesticides, and polyester, oil and gas, etc. Also powers our grid. So we want to think about our soil as carbon stewards. We have to think about healthy living soil, not monoculture soil that's become rather dead, cannot store carbon, and has a problem with the pesticides and the petrochemicals. So choosing organic food is a great, powerful way, organic and local. And also, if you're a meat eater, organic and local as well, is going to be a powerful way for us to become supportive of the existing carbon stewards, even if we're not a carbon steward ourselves. Now, I want to also show you a couple of other things. And this is a CDC-sponsored study that shows there's a link between toxic chemicals and pesticides to autism, to diabetes, and to other kinds of problems because of what happens when we're exposed to them. Also, the runoff from industrialized farms creates a dead zone. This is a mock-up by NOAA, the National Association of Oceanic Studies. And it's a mock-up of the current dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico that is created by toxic runoff from farming. Now, I'm sorry to do this to you in a 21-day coaching call, but I think that information is powerful. I didn't even know there was a dead zone. How many of us did, right? So that area there around the Gulf of Mexico, where there's all this refinery, the Cancer Alley, there's also the dead zone that we're dealing with. What is a dead zone? It is so depleted of oxygen that no fish can live there. And it happens every year. So that same exact study here also shows us over the years of the average and when it was the worst and that sort of thing. So when we're thinking about abundance, I want us to think about either being a carbon steward or supporting a carbon steward. I want us to understand the link between pesticides, and which are poisons, and health. You can't really have abundance if you're not healthy. And there really isn't any true wealth without planetary health. So yeah, give somewhere this week so that you reinforce the quality of abundance in your own psyche. And then also shift your ethos around food towards supporting carbon stewards. Those farmers that are sequestering carbon in the soil. If we can get more farmers to sequester carbon in the soil through all the methods that we just kind of outlined and a few more, crop rotation, proper animal management, no use of poisons or pesticides. It also protects the water supply, right? So all of this is really important. And your role in that is choosing organic, or again, you don't have to certify your schoolyard's community garden as organic. You just don't have to make sure that you don't use pesticides and petrochemicals, right? And compost. If your city does not yet have a composting, then either if it's a rural area, you can do it yourself. That's easy to find online. There are all kinds of guides online, and if you do it properly, you don't have any risk of smell or rodents. So I think it's really important to, to get back to nature. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And I hope that you had fun yesterday or have something fun planned. And I can't wait to hear what your charitable giving is going to be all about either. Okay, talk to you tomorrow.